Hey, step to the plate, I'ma swing for the fence. Throw me the lob, I'ma dunk it like Vince. They think I'm from Sac with the way that I'm ballin'. I feel like a king, but I'm fresher than Prince. Baltimore raised and fly like a raven. Made it through mazes, that shit amazing. Vision so clear, they thought I got LASIK. Cradle to grave, we pounding that pavement. Made up my mind, told them pass me the rock with the game on the line. I'm taking a shot. Shit, all of my life had to play from behind. And now they just watch, like, is he gon' stop? I tell them I can't. They think it's a game, they take me for joke, I just laugh to the bank.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the WWB podcast. I have on a gentleman, literally one of the most talented artists and creatives in all of music. A gentleman whose character supersedes his music too. I mean, the dude just is a stand-up dude, just one of the most talented dudes. He's on the rise. When you listen to the intro of the podcast, the gentleman here that we're interviewing, his name is Fifth. He's from the West Coast. So everybody welcome in Mr. Fifth.
Yo, what up? Appreciate you for having me, man.
Dude, it's just been an honor to work with you. I mean, you know, me and you come from a similar background. We're not going to get into that on this podcast, but in terms of just growing up in a certain type of environment, we both kind of grew up in a, rough and tumble type world. When I got aware of your music and how good it is, I was like, I have to have this dude do the intro for my podcast. And it's so nice and how quick and efficient and professional you were. Kind of tell the audience, Fifth, about where you're from, where you grew up, and just how you got into music.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So I'm from the Bay Area, so the San Francisco Bay Area in California, so Northern California. Specifically from a small town called Pittsburgh. Most people don't even know there's a Pittsburgh in California, but the reason why is because it's pretty small. It's like 60,000 people, but it's a Bay Area city along with Oakland and Vallejo, where E40 and some of your listeners might be familiar with like La Russell and stuff like that. So those are all all part of the Bay Area. So yeah, that's where I grew up. I was there basically, up until age like 19. I lived in New York for a couple of years and then back to the Bay Area, and I've been back here ever since.
Wow. Yeah. Cause I'm from the Chesapeake Bay.
Okay. Chesapeake Bay Area.
Yes, sir. So I'm the East Coast Bay. And I've always, to be honest, as an East Coast Bay person, I've always loved the lingo of the Bay Area folks. I've always loved the swag of the Bay Area. I've always loved the sound of the Bay Area. Kind of talk about that, because there is a certain sound. Where is that really kind of like that E40-ish type, bouncy type sound come from? Because it sounds like it's very unique to your area.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, E40, I think, is a very good example of the uniqueness that is the Bay Area, especially when it comes to music. Like, a lot of, especially when you get to rap, like a lot of people kind of sound similar. I think nobody would ever say E40 sounds like anybody. I mean, even the way that he talks and just, the way he approaches the beats and everything like that. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of pioneers of kind of like the Bay Area sound, and it's kind of evolved. It's gone through a lot of changes, maybe back in like maybe 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, there was the hyphy movement. That was their really famous song from E40 and Keep the Sneak called Tell Me When to Go.
Yeah,
that
Tell Me When to
like,
Go. Oh.
Yeah, that was like a big song and stuff like that. And then, prior to that, you had Mac Dre, Too Short. Spent a lot of his, like adolescence or whatever. I think his whole adolescence in East Oakland, and so you got some. I'm trying to think of who the other like people that will be really well known outside of the Bay. But anyway, there's a lot that have kind of created the sound, and now it's kind of it's kind of morphed into something a little bit different. I mentioned La Russell earlier. Out of Vallejo, he's really putting the Bay Area on the map right now. Simba is another artist out of another small town in the Bay Area. He was on a Space Jam soundtrack, and got quite a few up and coming. Myself also, I like to throw myself in there.
Hell yeah.
I'm about to drop my project pretty soon, and definitely been influenced by by a lot of Bay Area artists, but also a lot of East Coast artists. You know, my favorite rapper is Jay-Z.
Okay,
so
yeah.
my sound is kind of, you know, takes from a lot of different places.
Talk about that lingo.
Influence. Yeah.
That lingo, because y'all lingo is like different, bro. Yeah. Where does that come from? Like, is it like something about the Bay where they got to figure out always something more crazier, like more like wilder, like slang? Like, where do y'all get y'all lingo from? Like, how does it evolve?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know. I would imagine it's kind of similar, like to like most places, right? You just like it comes from somewhere, and then it just kind of catches on, and then people just start saying it. I mean, there's like I'm trying to think of like some Bay Area like specifics of like scraper. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a little older, but a scraper is a Buick LeSabre.
Oh wow,
it's a Buick LeSabre. So yeah, put some 20s on the scraper, you know, and then that was kind of like the big popular cool car. Like when I was in high school and stuff. It slaps. That definitely came from the Bay Area.
It slaps. That came from for real.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's crazy because I actually just put it on my story recently because people use slaps for all kinds of stuff, like the food slaps or whatever, right? But like really, the way that it's originally used, it's only slaps is only for music, really.
Oh,
so like saying anything else slaps, that's when it took on a different life in other places. But in the Bay Area, I don't think you'll ever hear anything slap unless it's music, you know? So,
oh, wow.
So just, different things like that. There's a bunch, man. If I like sat down and thought about like, especially all the stuff at E40, you know, the guap, I think E40 coined that term guap for money. All kind of things, man. I can't even think of it all, but it's,
what is the word for if you fly? If you're in the Bay Area and like somebody real fly, like they looking like they got the gear is tight. Like what do they say for that?
Let's see. What do they say now?
You can say it doesn't have to matter now. It could be anytime.
I'm trying to think, bro. Let me see. They used to just say like fitted. I'm really trying to think of like what they say specific to here. Because drip definitely doesn't. I don't think that comes from here. I don't know, bro. I'm gonna have to come back to that one.
All good. Okay. Yeah. So when I originally and we had sent a text message back and forth, we talked about how I really thought you were a 49ers fan. I have this assumption that everybody that lives in the Bay is a 49ers fan, but you're actually an Oakland Raiders fan. Kind of talk to us about, your Raiders fandom and if there is a rivalry with the 49ers and how you became a Raiders fan versus the 49ers.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't speak for the entire Bay, but in my experience, a lot of times it kind of, so the Raiders is, so the 49ers is San Francisco, right? So basically anybody from San Francisco, it's almost a given they're a 49ers fan. Yeah. And basically anybody on the other side of the bridge, which basically includes everything but San Francisco, like the other side of the Bay Bridge, is a lot of them are going to be Raiders fans. So it's kind of the underdog a little bit, although, we have some Super Bowls in our past and stuff like that. But, like way back in the day. But yeah, I think I really became a Raiders fan because my dad's actually born in San Francisco, but he was raised in Oakland. So he kind of, he took to the Oakland team. So he was an Oakland Raiders fan. And I think just based off the strength of that, I became a Raiders fan. And that's when, since I was a really little kid, once I started paying attention, that's who I would always root for. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, they're now the Las Vegas Raiders. But
how did you feel about that? How did Oakland feel? I was furious as a Baltimore Ravens fan. It being a relatively smaller city, almost 700,000 people. I hate to see big cities steal teams. How did that really go down as a lifelong Raiders fan? How did the city feel? How did people feel?
Yeah, I think most of us weren't happy about it, but at the same time, like Oakland was just messing up, or I guess it's technically the city of Alameda, but they just couldn't get it together. So it was we just blame the management. I think for the most part, we understand it was bad business. They couldn't get the deal done or whatever, right? And Las Vegas was just more appealing, right? So we understand it's a business and everything, but yeah, it definitely is. it's definitely like something that's missed, right? Like having the Raiders be here in the Bay Area is like definitely something that we miss and we kind of lament, not happy about it, but it is what it is. People still go to the games in Vegas. I'll probably end up in one, maybe not this year, but next year. So, we still rock with them. We understand it happens, right? Like, I mean, the Raiders went to LA for a while. They were in LA for a little bit,
Yeah.
And then, came back to Oakland. So, this is kind of one of those things. I don't expect us to ever get him back. I think now that it's in Vegas, and that stadium is just crazy out there. So, like, I can't see that really changing. Vegas has been hungry for, a kind of a major sports team, I think, for a while. So, they got one now. So, it is what it is.
Yeah. I heard it's like a 6-hour drive to Vegas. Is that true?
From the Bay? Well, so you might be thinking about LA. So, from LA, it's like, I think it's like 5 or 6. But in the Bay area, the Bay is like 6 hours from LA, so it's far from there too. And so from here, let me see. I mean, I've definitely flown. I think doing the drive is like, don't quote me, something like 10 hours.
Woo!
It's like a 10-hour drive. So yeah, it's farther because Vegas is in the southern part of Nevada, close to LA. You know what I'm saying? So it's a drive.
Oh, that makes sense. I get it, man. Yeah. Well, we do have some history as Ravens fans versus the Raiders. Rich Gannon, he has some history there, sir.
Definitely. But I'm not a Ravens hater though. I'm actually I'm a Lamar Jackson fan. I hope he gets his bag.
He will.
I'm rooting for him, Yeah.
Honestly, bro, I never was. I'm gonna tell you a deep, dark secret. I'm gonna say it on this podcast. I'm gonna be honest. I low key back in the day. I've always been a Ravens fan, no matter what. I don't care. Like that's not my number one team. But because of the colors of the Raiders, like the silver and black, and the I had a Raiders starter jacket back in the day with the Flintstones. I had a Flintstones Raiders starter jacket, and then I used to always use them on Madden and NFL, NFL like game day and all those other games. So I love the Raiders. Like you guys had some great running backs back in the early 2000s. I low key respect. I have always respected the Raiders for some reason. It's something about just your design and your logo. Maybe that's something about it. I don't know.
Yeah, and the colors. I think that black and silver is just kind of. It's just kind of iconic, all over the world. In as much as football is known around the world, I think a lot of people gravitate to that, to the Raiders, partly because of the colors. And, there's a lot of things that made it famous. NWA, they were, when they came out, they were always wearing Raiders gear and, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's understandable. It's definitely one of the most popular franchises around the world. So I get it.
Yeah, it's hard not to be fly wearing something with the Raiders on it. It's really hard not to be fly.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Interested. Okay. Now let's talk about your music, man. How long have you been doing it, man? Kind of talk about like your first foray, because I have your album. The album that I'm gonna pull it up right now on my phone. I bought the whole album. You got to support indie artists, man. I can't stand people that talking about, rap is not where it needs to be and blah blah blah, but they don't support the artist. The album that I have from you is 1 year old. I bought every single song. Without a question, extremely well done. On My Way is one of my favorite songs. Cost of Doing Business is awesome. Chasing Dreams is great. But On My Way, I love that song. Talk about your foray into music and your new upcoming project, man.
You said talk about my what into music?
Your foray into music as you got into it, like kind of where do you stake? What are you trying to? What type of statement are you trying to make with your music?
I think the message behind my music, it's evolving slightly. And I think, it was inspired by the background that you kind of referenced earlier, coming from that strict religious background and then, kind of leaving that group and kind of being ostracized and cut off from the family and, friends and all that kind of stuff. So I think just my life has really informed my music, to be honest. It's just kind of like, the resilience and the drive to not give up and to, face adversity head on and to really just depend on yourself, really get to that point where you're not dependent on other people. And, I think even that has this kind of pros and cons, because I think just as naturally, like as humans, we do need one another, but there is also something to be said about saying like, what, I made it here on my own, and I'm standing on my own too. Even though people who were supposed to be here with me are not here with me anymore, just because they've decided that that it's not worth having a relationship with me, or because of their religious beliefs or whatever it is. So I think that was really the thrust of the first project. Now, because I'm a little bit farther removed from those events, now I think I'm just generally talking about believing in yourself, chasing your dreams and going after, whatever it is that you want in life. Also, I think another thing I kind of, as I've reflected over these last couple of years since releasing that project and going into this one, is like, the media, social media and everything, like you can't just believe or be swayed by everything that you see. A lot of it is propaganda. A lot of it is just an image that people are trying to portray. You never know what people are dealing with at the end of the day. You might be looking at, Instagram or Twitter or whatever, be like, man, that person's life is perfect. Man, nobody's life is perfect.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've really come to, that's something that I'm really trying to preach to. Like, your life is valuable because it's yours. You don't have to compare it. You shouldn't compare it with anybody else's. You never know what people are dealing with or prices that people are paying to live whatever lifestyle that you're envying. It may, when you find that out, it may not be worth envying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's all kind of the types of things that I'm talking about. Going against the odds, and also, I also pride myself on talking about that as opposed to some of the negative stuff that I think kind of permeates that's prevalent in rap music, unfortunately, right now. Like, I think we can definitely use something that's a little bit different, a little bit more positive, a little bit more about growth. And I'm happy to be part of the voice that's filling that void.
Yeah. And that's what I love about your music. It's truly relatable. And, I'm a hip hop head too. I just love the sport of hip hop, and, we're not everybody's going to have a Bentley. Not everybody has 20 women and all this money. And again, we've gotten so far away with the commercialization of hip hop to so many other things. And when I listen to your music, I feel what you feel and what you're talking about, and I can relate to it. And that allows to really get the depth of your music and to really vibe with it, because there is a shared experience there as well. Another thing that people may not know about you is, aren't you multilingual?
Yeah. So I speak Spanish and Portuguese. My day job that I'm still doing to a degree, as I'm kind of trying to transition full time into music, is I work as a Spanish interpreter, believe it or not. So I don't look like your average Spanish interpreter, but that's what I've been doing for about 10, 12 years. So, and sometimes I interpret in Portuguese, but a lot less. I don't use my Portuguese as much, but I'm still fluent in it.
Wow. I mean, see, we got brothers out here that are multilingual. Have you ever considered doing a Spanish, like a full straight up Spanish song or straight up Portuguese song?
Yeah, I've thought about that, and a lot of people have suggested it because Spanish, songs done in Spanish sometimes they're the biggest songs in the world because there's so many countries that Spanish is the predominant language, unlike even like English or anything else. Like, I think there's like 20 Spanish speaking countries, besides all of the Spanish speakers in other countries throughout the world, including the U.S., for example, right? So, yeah, it's definitely something that I will consider. I don't know if I'm like a poet on the same level in Spanish.
Yeah.
Like I said, I definitely speak it, but there's a certain, there's nuances and stuff like that, I have to make sure it doesn't sound corny, make sure like it sounds cool in Spanish, and that it has that poetic quality, which I think is like another level of language that I just haven't practiced, to be honest. So, but yeah, I'm definitely open to the idea. I'm down for it. I think I have tried it before, like kind of messed around with it, but I think I just got cold feet and said, like, let me just stick with what I know I do well, you know?
Yeah. I would love to hear, because whenever you hear, people add a little flavor to that, because you'd be one of the very few, American-based rappers that could have that flexibility going from Portuguese to Spanish, and maybe there is some crossover appeal there as well. Talk to me a little bit as we round third base here. Who are some of the people that on your list of it has to happen in your life? And it will happen because you're extremely talented, great writer, love your movement, love your merch too. It's fly as hell. Definitely need to buy some. Talk to me a little bit about who you would like to collab with.
So I've actually collabed on this next album. I have collabs with some of my biggest, two artists that I really wanted to collab with. Simba, who I mentioned earlier.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, I have a song. We got a video. I'm just waiting to drop it. But yeah, that's on the next project.
Wow, that's big. So, that's massive, bro.
I've been working. So I got a song with him, and on the same song I got Rex Life Raj. Rex Life Raj is also he's big here in the Bay Area, and he's been doing a tour, like at least I think all over the country. So I don't think the two of them, being the two of the biggest artists in the BayArea, they don't have any other songs together besides the one they have with me, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Do you know Righteous Reg?
Righteous Reg. Nah, that doesn't
he's from the Bay Area.
Where's he from?
He's from the area.
Okay.
Yeah, Bay. He's like I like pro wrestling, so he's kind of like in that pro wrestling world. But he makes a lot of cool music. A lot of rappers do a lot of some of the entrance music for wrestlers. A lot of them. So that might be another thing for you as well. But yeah, so go ahead with the other people that you want to collab with.
Yeah, for sure. And then I mentioned earlier La Russell. I don't have a song with him, but we kind of run in similar. So we have a lot of mutual people that we deal with or that we know.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely something that could happen. And let's see, like like Ab Soul. I mean, I don't know if you heard his project recently, but
he came back. He's back.
Oh man, yeah, that guy has probably the best pen maybe I've ever heard. Like, it's really his metaphors.
He's very deep.
Entendres.
Yeah,
it's just crazy. And anyone from that camp. Even Reason and obviously like Kendrick, J. Cole. I could go on and on. But people that are kind of on that type of hype. Like, I really like lyrics.
Yeah.
And I know nowadays lyrics is not necessarily the most important thing. I think for a lot of people who listen to music, it's more just the vibe and everything, which is cool too. I like a lot of different types of music, but the type of music that I like to make is very focused on what you're actually saying. You know what I'm saying? And like, not just having a message, but also just being very creative and just being an artist, painting a picture and saying cool shit, like all of that kind of stuff. That's kind of what I'm into. So yeah, I would love to collab with any of these guys.
I love it. And as we finish up here, kind of talk about your inspiration for the our intro, because a lot of people, you talk about quite a few things in the podcast. And again, I was so surprised about the way that you were able to weave the conceptual things that I gave you and do that. Talk about the process of creating that and, like that whole process. I'm just so curious about that.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a unique experience for me, because I think I told you before we kind of went live that I have done another podcast and stuff like that. So it's different than my normal creative process where I'm just kind of vibing, listening to a beat, just saying whatever comes to my mind. I wanted to, within the 30 seconds or whatever of the podcast intro, I wanted to hit whatever kind of subject that you wanted, that you wanted the podcast to kind of be about, and things that are important to you. So yeah, I sat with, I asked you for, we talked about like who your sports teams were and, kind of the general concept of the podcast. And I just sat with that for a while. I threw on a beat that I got a beat from DJ Kane. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He's produced for some big names. I can't remember the songs off the top of my head, but he has like a nice catalog. Yeah. And I've actually got a couple of beats from him that he made custom. So the beat that was used, that was a custom beat that he made for me. I just vibed. I came up with some ideas, and my process basically is I drive around listening to the beat, and then I just recite it over and over. And I'm like, okay, no, that's cool. oh no, that's not cool. I'm gonna replace that with whatever. And then, eventually I come out with a song, and then that's how I did this one as well. So it was a fun process. I actually, it challenged myself. So I had to do it within a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And I think it came out cool.
Oh, I mean, no question about it. World class, top shelf work, no question about it. So now, Fifth, where can people who want to do maybe a podcast intro, who maybe want to work with you, collab with you, think you're so talented, where can they find your work and how can they reach you?
Well, yeah, so I'm on IG. That's probably what I'm on the most. The handle on IG is official the Fifth, all regular spelling, official THEFIFTH. That's probably the best way to contact me. I'm pretty responsive, to my DMs, especially, dealing with business. So you can definitely reach me there. That's probably the best way.
Love it, man. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. I know that you are quite a busy gentleman, but you gave us such a wonderful gift of this intro, and just knowing the man you are behind the scenes, the character that you have, what you stand for, the quality of music that you do, how you take the craft seriously. It's not a game. Yeah. It is literally a work of art. And it's just, we have to elevate, these voices and the amount of talent that you have. So again, I thank you so much for coming on, dude.
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate you for having me, and looking forward to coming back on again.
Hell yeah, we're going to talk some playoff stuff. So, folks, you heard the man again. Follow Fifth, and Fifth, give them one more place. Tell them one more time where they can find you again to support.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at official THEFIFTH, official the Fifth.
Sounds good, guys. So thanks for coming on the WWB podcast. We're going to continue to elevate dope voices, bring in interesting, unique characters like